One more. All right.
Good evening. I'll call the meeting to order at 7:03. It's the September 30th meeting of the Master Plan Implementation Committee. With that, I just gotta grab the agenda. There we go. Second. Running a bit behind today.
I'll fill in the space and say good evening, everybody. Okay. While he's looking for the agenda, I know I just today sent out the draft minutes, slightly revised. I did print a couple of copies if somebody preferred to look at them hard copy. I just have the 2 copies so you can share them with you. Slight, very slight corrections.
I'll just take a quick look.
All right, so public comment, hearing none. Review and approve summary of September 16th.
So the changes were just to be sure and identify all the ranked in parentheses, exactly what they were, not just numbers.
That was helpful for me.
Is there any comments, changes, or a motion?
I motion to accept them as amended.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye. Abstain.
I'll abstain.
Alright, so with that, we are going to continue with the review and ranking of goals for chapters 1 through 4. For those that were not here the last meeting, we had gone through chapters 5 through 8, provided some ranked choice voting, tallied, and developed a list of the, by way of, I guess, majority, the strategy in each chapter that the strategy in each chapter that we felt was the highest ranked. We were going to do the same for chapters 1 through 4, and then hopefully have another meeting before a select board report out to review the rankings, kind of see where each one plays into in terms of priority, see which ones may be sort of on their path. So maybe we go to the second ranked choice, right? Because there could be some of these that are really getting it done without necessarily us putting influence on that. So if they can continue to do that, we can look at the next priority and hopefully, kind of parallel path, get a couple going. We'll present those to the select board is in a report out, and then hopefully get some direction, or I guess provide some direction for other groups that may need to chase some of these strategies, because some may be out of our influence, right? They may be in different groups that sort of have their own, structure, their own strategy, they're heading in their own direction. So it may just be sort of a reminder from us to them about these, and these are priorities for the select board, and what can we do to help. Others we may be able to take and champion and drive to completion. But I think that'll be, once we get the full list and we look at them, we'll see that. And then, hopefully we'll have a couple parallel paths of priorities. Some may be working themselves, some we may be pushing, some other groups may be pushing after we talk to them, so at least we can get a couple more of these moving. So, we're going to continue with, like I said, Chapter 1. We'll start there. I did input Francine's already, so she had... She had 3, 4, and 1 as her top 3.
On chapter 1?
Yes. Yep, 3, 4, and 1. In that order.
Want me to go next?
Yeah,
Or you?
because we all
You have an
switched
order
seats, so
there?
it doesn't matter.
Do you want to do it by the way you have it?
Yeah, why don't you want to go by
You
name
call
right
me.
We
over?
can do that way, so Brittany's up,
Sure.
because hers was input.
All right, so I had 4, 2, and 1 in that order.
4, 2, and 1.
I'm going most important to least important.
Correct. And George is next.
Oh, sweet deal. I had 4, 1, and 2.
2. Jim is next.
I too had 4, 2, and 1.
2, and 1. Cindy?
I had 1, 2, 4.
You had 1 as your third. So
Oh,
one
yeah, so
was
did I.
Jim's number 1 was 3.
Yes.
You had
Oh.
1.
So Jim, first place gets 3 points, second place gets 2 points.
We're going by points.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So to be honest, the more numbers you say makes this really confusing too.
Okay.
So use the word also instead of 2 and.
It's fun idea.
Fair enough.
All right, so you had 1 as,
Number 1 is 1.
yep,
Number 2 is 2, and number 4 is 3. You're getting the values on them.
number 4 is your third.
Yes.
Gotcha. I was like,
Now I'm confused. Chris?
First one is number 2, 1, and 4.
And Christina?
1, 4, and 2.
1, 4, 2.
Close in so many ways.
Lines are kind of overlapping there too.
Yes. Yes.
Especially chapter to chapter.
Well, but even this other,
2, 4, 2, 1. Give me 1 second. And Brittany.
Do I get a say?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I mean, I've been gone, so it'd be fine because I wasn't part of the other one. So
No.
totally.
No,
Speak up.
I'm just a drone. I'm just reading what's in here. So
I had M-A-R-G-A-R-A-T. There you go.
all right.
I had 4, 2, and 1.
4, 2, and 1. I'm very sorry about that.
That's quite all right.
It's M-A-G-A-R.
M-A-R-G-A-R-E-T.
I thought you said A-T, so I
Oh,
gave
no.
my spelling.
Nope.
And Brittany.
All right, so I had 1, 3, and 4.
3. Where's the chapter? 3 and 4. And then George.
I had 2, 4, and 1.
Jim. Okay.
Chapter 2.
Yes.
Just really thinking about my chapter 1 goals because it's close to my heart, but I'll get there. 3, 2, and 4.
This is chapter 2 now. Or whatever it is. Working out. Okay.
And Cindy?
Chapter 2, 4, 2, 1.
4, 2, 1. And then Chris?
2, 4, 1.
2,
4, and 1.
4, and 1. George, what were yours again?
I had 2, 4, and 1.
Okay. And Christina?
Well, I struggled on the first goal because I thought these things were nice, but in trying to prioritize for what is most important to the town, I didn't know how critical it was to the town. And I find that I have found that with the other chapters as well, where the goals might be good and the strategies are a little toothless. So I'll go, I guess I have 4, 3, and, well, on question 2, there's still the question is, given what commercial income have we established, how valuable commercial activity is here, given the tax rate?
Right.
That's the question I have. Are we sure we want to encourage commercial activity? I don't think we've answered that question.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think from a... So the way I look at these is we are a diverse subset of the population, right? We participate off of different committees, different boards, different demographics, different areas. So you represent yourself and you represent sort of like-minded people, right? So it's okay for someone to say, I think this goal is baloney, right? I mean, because there are other people that are going to have that opinion, and so if I'm going to say you, and it's not necessarily pointed at you, but
The plural you.
yeah, if we feel, you individually feel that one is not, it doesn't have teeth, it doesn't have weight, it doesn't have merit, then it doesn't need to get the vote, I think, you know?
Well, to the point of number 2, though, is without knowing whether commercial activity will really benefit the town or how much it will, it's hard to create that as a priority, I think.
Right.
So that said, I'm going 4, 3, 1, please. Although I think 1 is rather toothless, and it's
Can you say that order one more time?
4, 3, 1.
Thank you. I agree. I think some of these, like you said, you read the goal and it's like, that makes a lot of sense. And then you read the strategies and like, that might not get me to the goal.
Yeah,
Right.
very much so on many of them, I find.
Yeah.
4, 2, 1.
4, 2, 1. Just give me a second.
struggled with 3. But I will say 4, 1, 2.
George?
I had 4, 1, 3. I will say I do see 2 and 3 as kind of hand.
I did too. I did too.
There's nothing saying that they can't sort of combine too,
Yeah.
right? Because we have discussed some of these strategies as being not throwaways, but does it really matter one way or the other if we do that one strategy? And conversely, if a strategy in one makes a lot of sense in another, we can move it.
Right. They both mentioned cultural. One uses activities, one uses assets, and so I had a hard time differentiating.
Jim?
4, 1, 2.
Cindy?
4, 1, 2.
Chris?
Which one are you on?
3.
3.
I was thinking about this one. All right, I think this is where I ended up. 1, 2, and 4.
1, 2. 4. Christina?
4, 1, 2.
2.
Same for me. 4, 1, 2.
Census amendment.
Tally after, and I'm confident there's a first and a second. All right, and lastly, we have chapter 4. Francine had 526. Six. Brittany.
5, 1, 2.
George.
5, 4, 2.
Jim.
5, 2, 6.
I want every one of them in number 1 space. Just to be clear. But that's not going to work. So I actually had 2, 1, and I put 7, 6 together. Now you can do that. I'll put 7 first. In terms of equal ranking.
Chris.
Yeah, I struggled with this one a little bit. As much as I agree with goal number 5 being up there, with water resources, I didn't think that the strategies really spoke to it
Very
whatsoever.
bad.
So I
Yeah.
got annoyed. Therefore, I changed, and I went to 1, 2, and 6.
1, 2, 6. 1, 2.
Plus, I think we've got water in other places.
Well, we got a lot of these other
Part of
places.
it.
Christina.
But also, those first two strategies, hold a series of public presentations, that's fine, but it doesn't get done anything. So nonetheless, I'm going 1, 5, and 2, but I think that 4A should be added to 2.
So 1, 5, and 2.
And I said, yes, on 1, 5, and 2.
Yeah, I thought there was an overlap between 4 and 2 as well, and also kind of.
And I thought that was the only substantial strategy. 4A was the only real substantial strategy in Goal 4. All the other things are good, but again, not that significant, I thought.
Margaret?
5, 2, 4.
Yeah, I guess when I looked at the Goal 1 strategy one, with the public presentations on smart growth, I mean, I saw that as a parallel to what Open Space has done on those outreach meetings, because I don't know that we've really focused on smart growth per se, as educating the public as to what that was all about.
I think there was differences as to what
Yeah.
I would understand about smart
Yeah.
growth versus what was done.
Right, so I just saw that as, because I think the open space one was pretty successful, so I saw that as a...
Yeah, but don't you think it would be better to actually, rather than just holding public presentations, actually enact that?
Well-
Concentrate development in some places and discourage it in others?
Yeah, and I
It gets a public sentiment doesn't, I mean, it's in a direction, but it's not accomplishing the end.
True, but again, I think a lot of these sort of tie in where they're not totally complete, where they repeat themselves in other places. So it may be phrased better in other places where it talks about concentrating development. I think we saw it in one of the other ones.
Yeah, I think there was something about cluster development.
In the economic-
There is about redefining the cluster bylaw,
And in chapter 2.
which I think I've said to you before, the planning board is undergoing a whole review of the bylaws that's ongoing, and it's going to be picked up again starting this week. On Wednesday, we're going to devote the first Wednesday of every month, which is a planning board meeting, to just bylaw review revisions, and then there'll be public hearings, and then there'll be presentation to town meetings. So I'm trying to align my input with what we've got here in the master plan as far as revisions within of the bylaws.
How long has that committee been going now? 6 years? It's been a while.
I don't know about 6, but a couple, maybe, I don't know.
I was on it when it first restarted, but then when I was writing my book, I didn't have time.
Oh, is that
to
right?
stop.
Okay. With Larry
It's been a
Smith?
while. No, the next version, the one that Velma was spearheading.
Who?
Isn't it Velma, right?
Oh, you're talking about zoning,
No.
planning.
You're talking about general bylaws.
No, bylaws, general bylaws.
Well, there's two.
Yeah.
There's
Oh, you're
general
talking about the
bylaws,
zoning
and Velma's
bylaws, got
in the
it.
general bylaws, and that's been going quite a while.
Yeah.
This is
Oh,
zoning
got it.
bylaws,
I get it
which
now.
is under the under the planning board.
Okay.
But their processes are, and it's quite challenging. Okay. He's doing the math.
Yeah. So chapter
Winners.
1, we have goal 1-4, create affordable housing opportunities in Southampton.
Oh, so that's 4, okay.
18. So 1-4 has 18 votes. 1-1 has 14. And then 1-2 has 13.
4, 1, 2.
But Jim, just to piggyback on your contemplation earlier. So I was here earlier then our meeting started, and the finance committee meeting was happening, and there was some conversation about, the CPC funds, the housing funds, and we had a little conversation about just how do you use it, right? How do you make it available and benefit the correct end user? And there were some ideas thrown around. One that was thrown around, which I think takes time and effort, but purchase of land and an RFP for affordable housing development, right? So you procure the land, however many acres you need, right? If your goal is 10 units or 9 units, but you put an actual RFP out to a developer, right, who pays for the development, right? They're going to sell these units, but it's a directed RFP for affordable housing and build 9 affordable, single-story ranch units or townhomes, or however you'd like to, push them to be built. But it was a good conversation just about like, how do you do it, right? So maybe the funding is used to purchase the land, maybe funding is used for fit and finishes in the units or some development costs, maybe a utility cost, something like that. So it was a good little conversation.
So I have to insert something here that came up at the planning board, this concept of affordable housing and the challenges of the developers that have come forth and just completely not paid attention to the rule that says if you build more than 9 houses in a subdivision, you have to have at least one affordable house. And this consultant that we have to the planning board, who's from PVPC, his name is Larry Smith, some of you may know him, he said that there are tremendous challenges in communities that have attempted to do affordable housing. For example, who vets the people to find out if they meet the criteria to be in affordable housing? That's one. Another one is what happens 3 years down the road when the house is sold? Does the next buyer of the unit, the house, whatever it is, meet the criteria? Those are some of the challenges. Now, that doesn't mean to throw irons in the fire here, but he said there was some kind of conference, housing conference in the state at some point, and lots of valid experiential things came out of that made it say, look creatively. I was really inspired by the thing that Chris just sent out regarding the CPA, use of CPA funds in Great Barrington. And a member of our family happens to be an architect, retired, in a different state, and they did some things very creatively, very differently, with like sort of co-housing concepts and different things. Don't know the answers, you're the housing person, but just kind of telling you what kinds of thoughts I've come in.
It was amazing that Great Barrington was able to use like,
It'd be,
30%?
36% of its CPA funds.
More. I didn't get to read it.
For affordable housing.
Yeah, I didn't get to read it.
So development?
Yeah. It was.
Well, they partnered.
They just won an award for their housing, affordable housing efforts. We're a long way from winning that
Right,
award.
no.
From the Mass.
Certainly, a small town like Great Barrington is one to pay attention to.
Yes.
7,000
Right,
parcels.
so
That's why
there's
it's
7,000 people. They had a 2016 project that supported the development of 45 affordable apartments and an ongoing one that supports the development of 49 mixed-income apartments.
So like what you were
But
saying.
these seem more like rental housing?
Not clear.
Like the one
Right,
on
so-
the one on Cottage Street in Easthampton. That's
Well, I mean, maybe
rental.
that's the development
Yeah.
route, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Purchase of land,
Yeah.
Because you
Maybe that's part of the
can't always
RFP,
vet
right?
whoever is applying,
Yeah.
right?
but then the vetting goes on the owner of it, right?
Yes.
'Cause I know they've done that in the Pittsfield area as well. I've seen,
Right.
development of sort of townhouse style affordable housing, near North Street.
Probably worthwhile to talk to the.
Yeah, I think I sent it to Virginia too, just saying, hey, I mean, I know CPC kind of waits for proposals to come to them, but at some point in time, there's got to be a little bit of sharing of
Maybe you could do a field
information.
trip to.
Yeah, well, I think, could we invite Great Barrington to come to us, or at least talk to you, or, come to a
Yeah,
meeting?
some
I mean,
representative
something.
to start a conversation going about how
At
how
least.
towns have achieved
At least,
it.
I mean, given that they've at least done
Right.
something.
Because maybe the answer is rental as opposed
Could
to
be.
homes for purchase. What's, more viable and manageable and.
Well, I could see rental solving your problem with
Yeah.
vetting. Would be on
Yeah.
the owner.
So, On the housing committee,
And he's like,
we've invited, we've looked, not to Great Barrington, because this is the information I'll definitely look at and share, but closer to home, Goshen was able to develop some affordable housing
Yeah.
for their folks, and so we
Just recently.
explored how they did that. Westhampton did also, but I think it was privately developed, which doesn't mean that's not helpful. And so Paul Aschetti, who works for Hilltown CDC and he's their housing coordinator, came and spoke to us on the housing board, and he talked about the process that Goshen took. It's a process, but it's one we're definitely pursuing, learning more about in the housing authority, so we can report on it. One of the things that I want to remind folks is, if the goal is more affordable housing, and that's a pretty broad definition, there's lots of ways to do that, and some of the ways are through rentals, in the examples you're giving, but Mass, was it Chapter 60G or whatever it is, that talks about affordable housing as far as a percentage of affordable housing in town. The law states basically that if a town doesn't have 10% of its housing as affordable, a developer can come in and create affordable housing, be damned if any of the local bylaws about what can go where.
Right.
The town cannot stop them. The state law trumps the local town if the town has not reached their 10% goal. And that 10% goal doesn't include rental units. It's owned affordable housing. So there's nothing wrong with pursuing rental options to make things more affordable for folks in town. I think it's admirable. But if part of our goal of making more affordable housing in town is to, on the back end, gain some control back as a town as to what is developed in town and what is not, the rental units will not get us closer to that 10% goal.
What is our percentage
I
right
was just
now?
gonna ask
Off the top of my head.
Zero. Okay,
Outside of
so,
rental, 0?
correct.
that right?
So,
And
yes.
nothing since the bylaw, it's just
Right.
been...
So,
That's right.
10% is a big climb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even for towns
Yeah.
like Northampton, which has a lot of affordable units, it's tough. So you could make an argument that is it ever going to happen in a little town like Southampton? What saves us and other little towns from a big building full of affordable units is it profitable for the developer? And two, the whole chapter on the infrastructure, how do you
Yeah.
water and sewer it? So we're in the same position as many other, if not most, small towns. What makes us a little bit different is we're kind of small, but we're not that small.
Kind of at that
But
verge.
we're not really a hill town either. And despite
Well, just because we have a big Y doesn't mean we're not. Realistically, that side of the town is really the only thing that separates us from
100%.
10 miles that
Yeah.
way.
Right.
Realistically, it's Big Y, Tractor Supply, and the
Right.
shops across the street.
Right, but I'm talking about where people live in
Yeah.
town. I don't believe we're rural anymore. I think people want to believe that Southampton is a rural community, but you look around, I don't see a lot of rural, I see a lot of development. So we're not Chesterfield, we're not Huntington, we're not somewhere in between. So that potentially makes us vulnerable to someone seeing this as a site to build affordable housing, especially if they get taxed, if they, being a developer, gets tax incentives to do it. It's just, can they find the infrastructure?
What is that housing? I drove a gentleman today to the doctor's office, a very elderly gentleman, and he resides in that apartment building, I assume it's apartments, not condos, directly behind Cumberland Farms, something Park Place. I'm
That's,
sorry, I don't know the number on that. It's a College Highway address.
Right.
But is that
It's just
affordable
renamed.
housing?
Well, it's market rate, but it's probably more affordable than
Those are-
others. But
Technically all rentals.
yeah, those are all rentals.
Okay.
And
People may be grandfathered in too.
as far
In
as,
terms of rent level, there might be some kind of cap that's being put for.
Yeah, I mean, it's all dependent on your income in there.
Don't know.
It's all ages.
Oh, it's all ages?
Yeah,
It's
but
not
I-
elderly housing, but it's not
Not
affordable
elderly,
housing.
I don't know that that rent is, I honestly don't know. I
Okay.
don't believe it's rent based on income.
It is. I know someone who lives there.
Yeah, okay. So
It's
that would
rent
make
based on
it,
income? Okay.
so that would make it, then if that's the case, then it's, so there's some Section 8 housing there, that's affordable housing.
I don't know.
But it's rental units. So,
I would
you know,
say-
we have some affordable housing in town, but as far as counting toward the Massachusetts
yeah.
General Chapter for affordable housing, none of it's permanent.
Now, how's that place different though than the one behind Paisanos that's just gotten renamed?
That's what we're talking
Those are,
about.
No, there's two separate.
those are.
Oh, you're talking about the one behind O'Grady?
Yeah,
Those
that's
are
what
like
you're talking about
legit
right now.
apartments.
Oh,
Right.
I was talking about the one behind Paisano.
Okay,
No.
No,
so
that's like
Paisanos.
legit apartments.
Yeah,
I think.
but that's not low
No, I
affordable
don't think so.
housing.
You're saying the one behind
The
O'Grady
one
is?
behind Cumberland Farms.
I'm talking about the one directly behind Cumberland Farms.
Okay.
From here, you go north on Route 10,
Mhm.
past Cumberland Farms,
They're-
immediately take a
they're
left.
really next
And
to
then
one
immediately take another left.
Yeah, the one you're talking
Yeah,
about is kind of like further back.
It's
behind.
further back
Farther right
behind
behind
Paisano's.
Paisanos, but
Okay.
back in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the road that goes by the bank.
Yes,
Yeah, that's.
Right.
I think those are regular apartments.
just apartments.
Okay, that's what I thought you were talking about.
Okay.
So the other one is much smaller, the one you're
Yes, this
talking
one's small, the one I'm
Yes.
talking about.
So I didn't realize that
Thanks,
was
Mike.
affordable. Yeah, there it is.
No problem.
I think this gentleman would fall into a income category.
So we're talking about this right here.
Yes,
This is all regular apartments.
okay.
Oh,
But
okay.
this right here.
That's what I'm talking about, right? Correct. And then
Are
George,
those
while
like
you're up
townhouses
there,
behind it?
so if you
Yeah,
cross,
I've never been all the way back here.
that's all really kind of high-end condos, right?
So I'm wondering, I don't know the history here, but was
There either. You go into the dentist and then you
Was this has the look to me
Oh.
of something that was built as affordable to permit this to be built so tightly.
Oh,
I don't know if that's the
interesting.
case.
That's what I would think.
That's
That's
what
actually-
that's what it screams to me.
I wonder if it was the
Because I
same
don't know.
developer, and
All
anybody,
of
Right.
this
How long has it
Because-
been there?
don't even
Because,
know.
yeah, that just screams that, you know.
That's an interesting.
Too tight, doesn't fit the code, okay, we'll let it do it if you,
Right.
but we don't have anything like that in town, so that,
So
maybe.
is it?
Wait a minute, Jim. All right, so look at these over here.
Right,
This is Palmer Meadow, there's the school.
right, very tight.
These appear to be as tight as
True,
those.
True.
And these are not affordable, they're
Correct.
expensive
But it's the same.
condos.
and they're more recent, much more recent.
And they're much more recent.
Yep.
And I'm not sure who developed the ones,
They're the same developer.
is it the True Heart, sorry about that, True Heart
I
Development?
mean,
yeah.
they're exactly the same.
So are we saying basically in this
They have the same little
development,
patios,
there
Oh, yeah,
should be
you're right.
same
affordable
piece of
housing?
the roof.
No, because we
Oh,
don't have
can't
anything
be.
like that in the bylaws.
No.
I was just speculating,
Yeah.
just because it looks, but I know there's nothing there in the bylaws. It just, that's how many towns build affordable housing.
But if we're talking over 9 units,
yeah.
Well, those preceded the 9 units.
oh, that was before.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I don't know about so much for the 140 feet of frontage, so I don't know what happened
Well,
there.
those are-
either.
I don't know,
yeah.
It's a condo park, those are actually duplexes.
Right.
Yeah, they
In
are.
many cases.
But they still don't come close to 140 feet of frontage, but
No.
that's why, the sections in here on redistricting
Yes.
and rethinking
Yeah,
that
that's-
allows that, because since we're looking at this money, I mean, this to me is ideal, Mountain View Circle, and
Yep.
if you went over the road here, where I used to live, this is, down Lynn Drive, this is how you can create affordable housing. Even if it doesn't meet, right, and even if it doesn't meet the state's definition of affordable, by default, it would be more affordable than what we're currently seeing built in town.
And is it, does
But these, you could build this today because it doesn't have 140 feet of frontage on those properties. We've created,
I think that's in the proposed.
by
bylaw.
design or not, to create large.
Mega lots.
I think.
And I think the goal was, right, let's keep Southampton rural.
Right.
So we won't
More
have
land,
these
more
tight
property.
developments, but what do you get instead?
I think if you can build like a massive neighborhood, not necessarily on the scale of like the Plains in Easthampton, of smaller, 2-bedroom ranches, I mean, I don't know what the term, that's going to be affordable for this town,
Right.
compared
It's
to
some
a lot of the new $600,000 houses that come up
Right.
left and right.
Where do the many of the people who work in town that serve us as first responders or whatever can even afford to live here? You build more neighborhoods like that and
Right.
you can.
Right.
So to me, the fastest way to affordable housing is not the way we're pursuing through like Hilltown CDC. The fastest way is our own zoning changes, creating districts where tighter development can happen. We don't need funding for that. We don't need necessarily state approval, I believe. You just need a will to say, this part of town, this can happen.
We just changed the zoning bylaw to where it's anything over 5 units, certain percentage has to be affordable.
Well, that's another thing. That's not, you could do that.
You force the hand of,
Right. That's
how
how,
you build it, right?
you could force that, but I think you also,
But you can come up with,
if you allow tighter development,
You have to make sure
like
that's
Mountain View Circle, I think even a developer can still make money there because they're not restricted to 140 feet. They can make more units,
Right.
smaller, so they'll still make their money. So you can do both. You're right, you can restrict the giant cul-de-sac builds, force it more, and you can create districts where smaller lots for more units, and we can pursue other affordable housing through funding from the state, et cetera, and using CBC funds. These are all not mutually exclusive. But I think there's quicker hits than others.
Yeah, and I think we shouldn't get hung up on the word affordable, meaning necessarily means tested, that it could be, something where it's
Exactly.
just,
That's more affordable.
Yeah.
our,
I
first
think-
responders can afford.
Yeah, we can certainly target means tested also, but you're right. If we just focus there, I think we're missing opportunities.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
That's why I thought, the goal too, which was consider all the amendments to various zoning bylaws. I mean, I think that's got to be a place to start, to get things changed so that you can even talk about attracting people, let alone developers.
Well, I think you see so many of the older houses in towns that are like the 2-bedroom ranches, 3-bedroom ranches. As soon as they come up for sale,
You're gone.
they either get bought by a developer and get turned into this
Right.
mega mansion,
Right.
or there's such a hot commodity for like young starter families
Right.
that are like,
Yep.
They go quick.
they end up paying $400,000 for a small house. It's probably not really worth that.
Right, because it's a supply and demand thing, there's
Yeah.
not enough. So I suppose you could even build districts where tighter development is allowed, but not only allowed, but actually promoted or coded that this is all you can build here,
Right.
just to take the temptation away of a bigger.
Small single family.
So there is another side to this, and all of these things are very important. But a smaller, less expensive home will bring in less taxes, and yet the children or the elderly, whomever lives there, is going to utilize municipal services no matter what, because they're human beings, and that's what they'll utilize, whatever they are. We'll need police, and we'll need fire, and we'll need ambulance, school, etc. And I'm not saying this is the right thing, but we have heard developers stand at town meeting and say, why are we building small houses? We should be building extremely big houses that would bring in a lot of tax money. And that's part of the
So I think that's a fair
yeah, the
critique.
taxes are a direct reflection of that.
Right. I think it's a fair critique. My response to that would be, instead of one lot with a big house, 2 lots with 2 smaller houses, it's going to have the same net results as far as taxes. The same length of road has to be plowed.
Yep.
You might have kids in school, but not everyone who moves to town sends their kids to our schools. So I think there's ways to mitigate that argument.
Oh, I hope so.
It's,
I think we have to...
I've heard it before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the increased number of children in the school systems, which in itself, creates a burden financially for the town, is one thing to think about, but I think you're also going to attract younger couples that may not have kids yet, but yes,
That's right.
down the road it may surface as kids get older, but
Well, their burden could be less too, though.
Yeah, right.
Think about what everyone relies on municipal services differently, right? Like I don't have any children in the school. My wife works at a school. On snow days, she doesn't leave the house. We don't really need the road plowed. But just in general, right? Like right away, like a lot of those services, we don't use municipal transfer station. We're not on municipal water.
Right.
So some of these houses, depending on where they're built, where they're developed, that demand on municipal services might be low. I don't come
It has
in
to
this
be the
building.
aggregate, though.
I don't come in the building for anything, right? I get a building permit now and again and argue about my taxes and that's about it.
But to Cindy's point about the aggregate, I think that's, when we start looking strictly just at monetary, so, what's going to bring in the most revenue?
Yeah.
I think you lose something because you're going to lose the diversity in your town. Diversity is a word that means a lot of different things to people, but one way to look at diversity is income diversity, class diversity. Who's in town? Are we going to become the gentrified towns?
It's a social question.
It is.
It is. And
That's the
what
word.
value do we place? And again, to me, I can't put a monetary value, but I can put a value on knowing that the cop who drives down my street, and he or she may come to my door when I need them, if they not only know the town because they live here and they have an investment here, versus what's the investment if I can't even afford to live here?
Right. Or teachers. Yeah.
Same with the teachers,
Yeah.
exactly. All those things, it's hard to put a monetary value on that, but, think of what happens if you don't have that. You don't have those same kind of connections, you don't have the personal investment. Talk about, people feel Southampton is a small town. I think we are, but you're going to lose some of that if you lose those connections. We may not be necessarily rural anymore, but I think we're still small. But we're going to lose the sense of connectivity, which is what people think of when they think of small towns.
Right.
If only certain people can afford to live here.
Well, I think too, the first strategy under housing was talking about mixed areas, mixed residential districts, but also identifying districts that, or parts of town where housing should be prioritized, I think, was the way it was.
Right,
that,
exactly.
It's like to direct future housing unit growth to appropriate areas in town. I think that's really essentially what you're talking about.
That is, I
Yeah.
think, that is,
You're talking about goal one, strategy
Right,
one.
yes, right. Those are-
I think that should be a real priority, because again, that's something we can control
Yeah, absolutely.
much more readily than pursuing funding and trying to, push, developers or other people to do what we want. We can create a situation where essentially if you build it, they will come.
Well, that's our goal, goal one is number 2 in our rank order, so that's good.
Yeah, the 3 I ranked are all very, very close. I thought top 90.
Well, I think it ties in with goal 4, which was our first one, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Our strategy, goal 4.
It was
The first
mine.
one there is identify suitable property for the development of affordable housing. So again, they're, talking about the same thing, kind of all mixed in here as well, so.
And so let's move on to 2, because I think it's a great conversation, and hopefully the next meeting we can kind of spend some more time in some of these and maybe even pick strategies, right? So first and second, like what do we see is the main driver of the strategy? We'll filter out the ones, let's say, are complete or in progress, or highlight them differently so we know, hey, out of the 3, we've got 1 done. And, the other 2 are just standing in the way of us completing that goal. How do we get it done? So,
Or as Christina said, sometimes there might be the strategy that really doesn't get you to the goal.
Exactly. we cross it out and we're like, but we really like the strategy above because it really helps the
Right,
goal.
yeah.
I will say, I definitely looked at these goals and took the strategies with a grain of salt, because I know we've gotten into lengthy discussions over and over again about how ridiculous some of these strategies are.
Yeah.
You know, the goals are good, but the strategies seem...
I am leaving in about 10 minutes. I have to get up at 4 a.m., so get on the plane again.
Chapter 2, Goal 2-4 at 18. Invest in infrastructure and provide adequate capacity to meet the current and future needs for water, sewer, and telecommunications. That was number 1. Number 2 was Goal 2-2, adopt zoning and land use policy to encourage commercial activity in appropriate growth districts identified by the community. And that had 14, which actually makes good sense. Infrastructure, then building. And then Goal 2-3 was 3rd, establish a streamlined and transparent permitting process to improve communication with permit applications, which kind of goes in line with, I'm sorry, no, Goal 2-1
Yeah.
was 3rd.
So it's 4, 2, 1.
Yes.
What you think? And what was the total on that?
9.
9?
I'm not putting those in the minutes.
No.
Maintain and expand recreational opportunities connected to Southampton's natural, cultural, and recreational resources and market as an economic development opportunity. All right.
So that was third place.
Yes.
Third place, okay.
So I think obviously the whole infrastructure quandary we're facing.
Did anybody have a chance to watch that little video?
Is really
Yes.
tied to
On the-
everything
On the
that
storm sewer, the small sewer?
is coming up with kind of where we're going as a town. Yeah, that's a
But
pretty
I have
hefty
to say,
investment.
being not an engineer in any way, shape, or form, except for engineering my family dinners,
And that,
but that's work.
That's crucial.
But watching that video and then knowing about some of the other challenges we faced from sort of a, infrastructure engineering standpoint, and how fast things are changing in our society, I worry a little bit. I saw that Fuss and O'Neill presentation and I thought, is this the best way to go? Are we sure of that? Do we know? I mean, how do we get ahead of the curve?
Yeah.
That's all I can say. And
At least it provides another alternative to the, complete sewer system down
Yeah,
to 10.
yeah,
But
okay.
how, where the technology is going and, what else is out there, I don't know. I mean, that's all we've heard about so far.
Ahead of the curve is difficult without money. I mean, to be frank, right? Like to be sort of at that forefront, you need capital, right? Just to be out there and to sort of attend the conferences and the presentations to see what's
To know
going
what's
on
there.
and to kind of get ahead and get in front of legislation to.
so if we
for funding.
don't, then we're really at the mercy of private companies like engineering firms that want to come in and more or less sell their product to a small municipality. Maybe it's good.
Yeah, I mean, some are good. I mean,
I'm not saying they're bad.
and
That's
this-
what we become. We become.
I mean, you do. You only know what you know. I mean, in this comment has nothing to do with Fuss and O'Neill because I work with them a lot and they do great work in what we do
Sure.
with them. Where I've worked today, where I've worked before, we've had instances where companies come before the select board, some with great ideas, others with not so great ideas or things that they've done that, wouldn't be recommended. And you need to have subject matter experts sort of around and available that can help review and to kind of look at those things. It does become difficult. But if it's a viable option, we should entertain it. Even from a development standpoint, is this something that you can put on the developer from an infrastructure standpoint? It's no different than requiring local developments to provide electrical service underground, right? Or to provide stormwater, roads and paths that meet certain regulations. I mean, those are bylaws and requirements. There's nothing saying we couldn't explore requiring new developments to entertain other options. So. Anything else on chapter 2? Moving on, chapter 3. So chapter 3 had a winner with 22. Goal 3-4 at 22 votes.
Yeah.
Support growth management that will protect and preserve the rural landscape, scenic vistas, and historic resources that define the community character of Southampton.
Here, here.
22.
No, I agree with you. I don't necessarily consider Southampton rural, but.
But there is some rural landscape.
Well, there's
Right,
sure
you know,
is.
right. I still, you know,
And
there's
some scenic
obviously
vistas.
You can look out my window and it looks rural.
still a difference between Southampton and
I agree.
Northampton.
Yes.
You know.
Yes. Although most towns west of 495 have rural parts of them, even Holyoke, obviously, the part that borders Southampton.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
Second place here, goal 3-1. Ensure continued and expanded efforts to preserve and enhance the historical assets of the town of Southampton.
That was 16 votes?
16 votes.
So it's 4-1.
So I think we have a tie for third.
Well, this is the one where
I'm sorry.
3 and 2 were like, could be combined.
but this is also the one where there's a lot of consensus on
Sorry.
the first choice, right?
Yeah, first choice, second choice, third choice was goal 3-2 with 9 votes. Educate and engage town residents and visitors on Southampton's unique historical and cultural assets.
So that was number 3.
Yes.
Okay.
Just one thing, on goal number 3 on the cultural activities, at some point, probably a month ago, I was asked to check out the cultural council, which I forgot to report on. I did try, Lucy Dalton is on it, among other members, and they meet just once a year in December. And they usually get about $4,500 a year to spend on various activities, and she was going to get me a list of whatever had been approved, like last year, but I didn't. I don't think I ever got
It's
that.
always the summer concerts, it's always one or two activities at Norris, it's always the musical at the high school.
Yeah.
Those are the things that are always, and then there's a few other.
Yeah.
that-
So I don't even know how much is
in there.
publicized, or that people even know that it's out there to apply for, or I'm not even sure, but.
No, we used to get quite a few
Yeah,
applications.
so anyway, the cultural council does still exist, that was the
Yeah, oh yeah.
the
it's-
question.
So they meet just once a year to
In-
award the grants?
That's what I understood
Correct.
in December.
Yeah, that's pretty typical. Of smaller ones, like Easthampton meets pretty consistently, Northampton meets more often than that, but the one here, like we didn't, Easthampton, when I was on that one, was getting 50 applications.
Yeah.
Northampton gets a lot more, we might get 15 here. So I was on it for 4 years and then I got booted off when I got elected because they
Yeah.
won't allow someone who's elected
To be on it.
to be on it.
Yeah.
Which in very small towns makes it very difficult to even have a cultural council.
Well, I wonder, do people know that there are funds to apply
Well, that's
for?
Do. I mean, the
Yeah,
school
but I
definitely
don't know
does.
about
I don't know about
anybody else.
individuals
Yeah.
because there's some
Isn't there
restrictions
some
on it.
individual funding though for individual?
As long as you're doing something that is somehow educational. So
Community-based.
there's always also a grant for the senior center for watercolor painting. So if I wanted to come in and teach woodworking to kids at Norris, I could get a grant from them to
Do
do
people
that.
apply to the Mass Cultural Council too?
You have to do it through the cities. And we get the money
From the state, right?
the state,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's not a budget item from the town?
No, it's
No,
it
it's not.
all comes from the state. We're required to use as much as we can. The only way the money gets bigger is if someone doesn't actually use it, like they're
Right.
unable to,
Yeah.
get their thing off the ground.
Yeah, and it's an 8-person council, sorry, I just saw the members, if anybody wants to know. But
Yeah,
Marjorie Nadeau is the chair, Lucy Dalton, Karen Adamski, Jody Loud, Linda Brastad, Judy Taylor, Ellen DeBruyne, and Carl Faella. Faella. Those are all the members of it. So they allocate funds to applicants for reimbursement of funds that they apply for. So they put it out first and get reimbursed? Is that what I'm understanding? No?
Yeah, oh yeah, I mean, the
Yeah.
individuals, yes.
Okay, they fund it first,
They
then-
fund it first and then they
Right,
get reimbursed.
So
Correct.
anyway, but I go back to just the point of, how widely known is this? Because I have seen in like the Hilltown newspapers, people are, Goshen or Chesterfield or somebody's putting out a note saying, hey, we're ready, we're taking in applications now from the cultural
That's
council.
supposed to be part of the cultural
So,
council.
it would
They're
be
supposed
good
to
if
have
they
some
did,
kind of publicity, like I used to have a table at various functions, that kind of thing, they're supposed to. but-
Yeah. So anyway, just didn't need to get off traffic here.
No problem. So chapter 4, top vote getter was goal 4-5, protect Southampton's water resources. That had 17. Second was goal 4-2, identify and preserve important parcels for ecological, recreational, cultural, and historical value to create a townwide green network. And third place was goal 4-1, promote land use policies that protect the town's natural land and rural community character. Open space, natural resources. So my goal for the next meeting is to have the top 3 in each chapter kind of separated so that we can go through and look at them again and just sort of review and concentrate on the highest voted priority, and then to be able to kind of tailor what we report out onto the select board based on that. Kind of with an assessment of where we are. So there's other columns here, right, like other groups involved, a couple other columns in here with notes. So the report out will be, for instance, if goal 1-1 was the highest priority, this is the goal. These are the subset strategies that are pending action by us. These are going to involve planning board, housing, building inspector, whoever it may be, right? Just kind of go into each priority strategy a little bit and, hopefully next time when we go over this and we look at the top, we can kind of brainstorm about, next steps. How do we pursue this? Is it something that's driving its own path? Do we need to encourage? Do we need to participate? How do we interact with that goal, and how do we interact and help get it done?
Well, and in some cases too, I think like you were saying, some of those strategies, like the very first one there, maybe all those strategies actually do make sense and kind of fit the goal, but other ones, when we don't have a strategy that kind of marries the goal,
Right.
I mean, we can't change the strategy, right? But we've got to give some level of
No, we can't strain.
direction of
No, but I mean, I think if we
recommend.
if there were 5 strategies and one is just like out there, we could cross it out, right? And we can say, you know what, we appreciate the effort, but let's work on the 4 here. Maybe we bring another one in, or maybe we're fine with the
If there's another
4.
strategy somewhere else that seems
Yeah.
to fit. under-
Yeah.
And I think that's what next meeting we can really get into a little bit with these, and I think it does involve kind of some research on our end, between now and the next meeting, looking at the top vote, top goal, what works. If you feel a strategy just doesn't work, cross it out and
Yeah. Well, I
We
think
can
we've
talk
got like
about
the
it.
Greenway in 2 different places. I think we had
Right.
it here under, whether it was open space or economic development, one or the other.
Right.
And then it's also under mobility or something on the other ones we did last week. So, again, we can figure out a way to combine some of these.
or look at the 2 and say, well, if there's 2 in, let's say it's natural resources, right? I don't know exactly which
Yeah.
one the Greenways is on this one, right? But if the Greenway's here, but there's another high vote getter, and then we were sort of stumped on mobility except for Greenway, well then, maybe the Greenway lives in mobility, and we concentrate on the second priority in the other group, right?
It's actually under economic development. I just saw it.
Okay.
I think there are.
Well, there you go, right? I think it's there, but you need to build it first, right? Before you reap any sort of development from it, so.
So along the lines of you need to build it, I'm wondering if another way we should look at this is we can come up with the best priority list of the reflection on the master plan, what needs to happen. But if there's no way to connect that dot from what should happen and what can happen, it's just a list of priorities. So maybe we should also look at it from a lens of what current boards, groups in town do we have that we can connect dots to. Because again, if we have a goal that's a great goal, but there's no one we hand it off to, because that's our purpose, right? It doesn't really fit anywhere. It's not such a good goal, in my opinion, because there's no way to follow up on it.
Or maybe we have to follow up on it. I mean, if the goal is that good, right, and it doesn't have a home, maybe this is its home. Maybe it needs to happen, just because there's no one in that room that can take care of it. Doesn't mean we shouldn't take care of it, or doesn't mean the select board, right? Or a subcommittee, an appointed subcommittee isn't tasked with, now you're going to take care of this. You know, I think, to your point, I think there may be some goals that, and not to pick on any chapters, but maybe some of like the energy chapter, you know, there could be some that are, well, we could probably table this, you know, but there could be others that don't have a home, but should probably, you know, we may feel they need to get done somehow.
Right, so, and I'm fine with that, because if we have a high priority need and goal and everyone can agree on it, I don't think we should table it.
Right.
But I also don't think we should just say, we're done here. But I'll need to know more and more about where this team is going, what the purpose is, because this is continuing to mushroom into a big committee. And I'll just be honest with you. So, okay, if that's what we're looking at, I need to strap myself in for this, because it was not my idea of how this was.
I think,
You know, it's one thing that there should be mechanisms in town to implement goals that the people see are important. And if there are not,
it's called the ballot box.
then yeah, that's an issue if we don't have a certain committee that addresses things and whatnot. I mean, I guess if we become that committee, then that's just a temporary solution maybe to a longer term problem.
So I don't, and this is just my feeling, but I don't see us as that necessarily the final solution to strategies and goals can complete it, right? They are tasked with other committees, other groups to take this on. You know, we present this to the select board, top goals, top strategies, we can help, but we do have other voted groups, and it does fall on them to sort of encourage and to push a little bit as well, right? I mean, we're a committee with minimal influence, right? We can talk and we can request and we can do our best to influence, but we are an appointed committee. We're not elected. We're not.
Exactly.
Some of us are members of committees and some aren't. So,
Right.
I think we go to a point where where we can go, right? And then I think we have to kind of reassess it as we reach those points.
I agree. I think this group has understandably and necessarily a limited scope by design. And I agree with you that there are committees and towns and boards and et cetera that should be taking this information and running with it. But I also don't necessarily like, okay, we're done, I'm done, I'm willing to be a part of the effort to push and continue, but I don't think you're saying, or anyone, I hope no one around this table is saying that we then are going to implement all this and run with this. It's way beyond our scope.
Right. Exactly. I think some, to Francine's point, the super committee, right? We're not the super committee, but a planning board representative may be, a Concom representative may be, depending on the strategies and the goals which need to be implemented. If it's planning, Concom, zoning, if they all need to get together to make some of these happen, then that's a select board push to get those groups together to say, we need to concentrate effort there because they need to bring it back.
Right. Yeah. I do
Yeah.
think that, well, you're a select board member and you know more, but my sense from hearing Rini speak, et cetera, is that this select board is very eager to define particularly achievable goals as a select board, and they're kind of waiting for what this group has to say. And secondly, we have to recognize, despite a lot of good energy around this table, there's a limited number of really, working volunteers in this town. We constantly become aware of that. Thirdly, to just impose something on, say, for example, the Concom, who is really suffering. That committee is really suffering for lack of membership right now, Brittany, aren't they? And if we said, you need to implement these goals, it won't go well. It has to, any committee or board has to accept ownership, has to feel the investment in it, maybe even appreciate some support from a group like this, not to do it, but to be supportive of it. It's kind of how I think that this town is going to
I
work.
would tend to agree. I mean, I would think that once we make some of these, our recommended priorities known, the select board would really be the ones that would have to try and make certain things happen. Say, okay, this is obviously a planning board and a zoning board issue. We really want you guys to get together and, give us an update in a month to tell us what you've been able to do, kind of thing. I do see, though, I don't think master plan should go away. I mean, I think we have an encouragement role, but I think we also have a coordinating role, because I can also see select board saying, okay, we've given that charge out. It's public knowledge that we want this to happen, but you master plan, kind of keep your ear to the ground and kind of keep checking in with it periodically and making sure that it is moving along, kind of thing. I mean, I sort of see us as like
an auditing
a little bit
function.
a little bit of a coordinating, I don't know what you want to call it, kind of, just to kind of make sure that things keep on track and move rather than get lost.
And some of these strategies will be purely auditing, right? Because some groups and committees and boards are actively pursuing some of these strategies. So it comes down to someone has to check the box when it's done, So this committee checks the box, right? We may check in on a monthly basis, we may reach out, but someone's got to check the box, mark it green. So.
Well, the plan itself does designate who's responsible for implementing and carrying through, and often it is multiple committees. And so I don't know that there is any coordination, that there's anyone who is suggesting that the committees or commissions get together.
Well, I think from the master plan as a whole, this is my opinion, that's a bit sort of, from the master plan drafting perspective, that's a bit kind of presumptuous and then almost unachievable. When you look at how many parties and committees they have in each strategy, it's like, outside of hiring PVPC for 40 hours a week to coordinate, I don't know how you would do that, right? Because I don't know how you could actively get all those people in the room to decide on the first 6 strategies, right? Never mind the number there. So I think we have to, you eat an elephant one bite at a time, and we just have to be selective in the bites.
And look how long it took us to get here. Like a year and a half already, kind of thing, So.
Well, and I think, too, to the extent that there will be changes whenever there's new elections and so forth, and changes on various boards and committees, I think we can provide that continuity.
Right.
Keep the memory going of, this is where we came from, and this is what the intent was, and be that educating force for anybody new coming onto any board or committee, because I think that's where everything fell off the rails last time, right? I mean, a lot of it just kind of dropped off because information wasn't shared, or
And I think maybe
whatever.
maybe the meetings drop down to a little less frequent.
Sure.
But maybe the intention there is they're less frequent, but in that downtime, try to attend or reach out to the other committees that you're participating in or active with and see if we can get some updates. So, no, I think this is good. I think we have enough to take away. So I think enough homework with these chapters, with the priorities, with strategies. I have some sort of data keeping homework to work on myself so that we have something to work from and then report on.
Okay.
What is our homework?
So review the priorities.
Okay.
And then review strategies. And
On all 8 chapters?
yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So just the top 3. the third might be an outlier, right? So you're really only looking at the top two or vice versa. And then just kind of have some backup strategies too, like we talked about. If there's a strategy in the top priority that just, you read it and it just doesn't feel right, then maybe there's one that fits in better adjacent.
Right, I heard some people voice, I like the goal, but the strategies didn't make sense, so
Yeah.
I'm guessing this is the time to come back and really, if you feel really strongly about something, I don't like how we all ordered this, or this is a great sounding strategy goal, but there's no bones to that strategy. It's your chance to give that feedback and really kind of refine it. So I think
Are we
it's
ranking the strategies, Mike? So that, no, we just are
No,
reviewing
way too
them
many
and
numbers.
discussing for each answers.
Yeah.
I'll bring cookies next week.
When do we
When do we meet?
Well, so that's
We're
next on the
Yeah,
agenda.
I think we don't have to reorder these again. We're
No.
gonna, I think,
But the
we're gonna come
strategies.
back, all right, chapter 1, who's got some real feedback
Yeah.
about how this went? And
Got to be
if-
efficient with our
And
time.
if we don't,
Yeah.
let's move on. We don't
Yeah.
need to reinvent
All
it.
right, so next meeting, sorry, I need to move us along so I can
Okay,
get a little bit of sleep,
okay.
just for the date, and then we can continue to chat.
So-
Sorry.
When's the select board meeting? Because I know we were trying to time our next meeting with a report out.
We've got one this coming week on Wednesday, oddly enough, because we have a joint meeting with Board of Health, and then we have the special town meeting on the 22nd.
Okay.
To my knowledge, there's nothing in between yet.
So do we want to do the 14th?
14th is Columbus Day
Columbus
weekend.
Day weekend, Monday.
Okay. Do we want to do the 15th?
If everybody wants to come, that's not going to hold me back Monday
They wouldn't
night.
hold me back either.
Free. I'm okay.
It's a holiday,
It is a holiday, so,
so we should not have
okay.
public meetings on holidays.
Oh, okay. The
Or
21st,
the 15th? Just
the
I would
15th.
say the 15th, because then we can,
That's right, there's no select board meeting that night, right? So Tuesday the 15th?
if possible, because then we can get the following select board meeting after the town meeting.
Probably. I would think we could if we were ready for that. Yeah, because the special town meeting's on the 22nd. We haven't set the November dates yet, but, yeah, I would think it would be the,
How does the group feel about the 15th?
I probably won't be there,
Okay.
but don't let that discourage you.
Okay.
Because Tuesday
I forgot my
night,
phone.
is a general thing.
Between school and work, Monday's like the only night I usually have.
Okay.
Tuesdays I work until 7. If I get out early, I can make it.
Okay.
or we could go to the 21st, which is a Monday, which is the night before the town meeting.
I can't
Yes.
Let's just do
They
the
need
15th.
me.
Yeah, let's do it, because I'm going to probably go this 22nd, so I don't want it to be too
They
late.
need more members.
So we'll do the 15th at 7?
How many are on there?
5. We lost 2 this year.
No, weeks.
Hey, that's more than housing. We only have 3.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, so it's the 15th at 7 PM, second floor.
Second floor. With that, is there any other business that cannot wait? Any other topics, discussions? Good news, bad news? No news? All right. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We'll adjourn at 8:20.